The American South, where heat burns more than skin, it burns history into the pavement. Here, racism doesn't scream anymore. It whispers, behind uniforms, behind badges. Officer Thomas Richardson drives slowly through a quiet neighborhood. He isn't looking for crime, he's looking for a reason. And then he finds one, a young black woman walking alone, head high, back straight. Her name is Amara Williams, a bright college student heading home after a long day. To him, she's not a person, she's a threat, a reason to act. Amara walks calmly, one earbud in, listening to a podcast on political history. She has no idea the police car has been following her for 3 blocks. She doesn't know someone already decided she doesn't belong here. Then the lights flash. Red and blue rip through the evening silence. Richardson steps out of the car slowly, deliberately, like a hunter who's cornered prey. Hey, you, stop right there. Amara turns, confused, not afraid, not yet. She doesn't know why she's being stopped. But here, you don't have to do anything. You just have to be the wrong color. From the first step he takes toward her, it's clear he's not here to protect. He's here to dominate. Officer Thomas Richardson approaches Amara like she's already guilty. His right hand rests on his holster, though she's done nothing more than stand still and breathe. License and registration, he barks. May I ask why I'm being stopped? She asks cautiously, pulling out her wallet. Wrong move. He doesn't like the way she talks, calm, educated, unafraid. That confidence offends him. I said, give me your ID, no questions, or would you prefer I cuff you right now? She hands him her license, her student ID, her registration. He barely glances at them. This your car? Or did you just borrow it from someone you know? Her heart skips a beat. She realizes now, this isn't a stop. It's a setup. It's my car, registered to me. You can run the plates. He cuts her off. Don't tell me how to do my job. You're lucky I haven't called for backup. People like you always think they're above the law. Then, sharply, step out of the vehicle. But I said out. Amara obeys, trembling. As soon as she opens the door, Richardson grabs her wrist, twists her arm behind her back, and slams her against the hood. Hands behind your back. You're under arrest. For what? She cries. But he doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. In this place, in this moment, he is the law, and her skin is all the justification he needs. The cold metal of the hood bites into her skin. Amara can't believe this is happening. People are watching, from windows, from porches. No one steps in. No one dares. Richardson yanks her arms behind her, too tightly. The cuffs click shut with a metallic snap, loud, final, almost theatrical. I didn't do anything, she cries, voice cracking. You're making a mistake. No, you made the mistake, he replies, grinning, thinking the rules don't apply to you. He jerks her arms upward, forcing her to bend, and pushes her toward the cruiser. She stumbles, hitting her shoulder on the door frame. He throws the back door open and shoves her inside like a criminal. The back seat is hot, claustrophobic. It smells like sweat and fear. With her hands cuffed and her dignity shattered, Amara sits motionless, humiliated, feeling like nothing. Someone outside is recording the scene with a phone, but Richardson doesn't care. He turns to the camera and says, coldly, she was acting suspicious. She resisted. That's all it takes. 4 paperwork, 4 headlines, for a life to be ruined. He gets behind the wheel, starts the engine. In the rearview mirror, he sees her eyes of wide, wet, helpless. She doesn't know where she's going, what comes next. But Thomas Richardson does. He's seen this play out before, and to him, she's already disappeared. Let's pause for a moment. Write in the comments what city you are from and whether in your life there were cases of injustice similar to this story. Support the channel by subscribing so that you don't miss new episodes. And we continue. The police station feels more like a trap than a place of justice. Dim lights, thick walls, indifferent stares. Richardson pulls Amara from the car like a prize. Her hands are cuffed, her knees dirty, her face stained with dry tears. Inside, silence reigns. A lone officer glances up at them, recognizes Richardson, and looks away immediately. No one questions him here. No one ever does. He shoves her into an interrogation room. No words, no explanation. Metal chair, cold table, a camera in the corner. No lawyer, no rights, no help. Sit down, he orders. She obeys. Her heart pounds in her chest. He doesn't start any official recording. Tell me what you were doing in that neighborhood. Be honest, or I'll say you threatened me. I was going home, from college. I didn't do anything. He leans in, close. His breath reeks of cigarettes and bitter coffee. Maybe you're a drug runner. Maybe you work for someone. Speak up. No one's going to save you. She stays quiet, trembling, but something inside her burns with rage. He takes out his phone, snaps a photo of her face. That'll go in the report. Hostile suspect. You can't do that. He throws her bag onto the table, dumping out every item, books, makeup, notes. He wants a reason, anything to justify his lies. He finds nothing. Fine, he says, smiling coldly. Then we'll keep you here, for a long time. And at that moment, in that suffocating room, Amara realizes if she doesn't call her father, she might never leave this place. Amara sat hunched over the cold metal table, the handcuffs still bit into her wrists, red welts forming beneath the steel. Her fingers tingled, numb. The air in the room was thick, stagnant. Every breath reminded her she wasn't a person here. She was a suspect, a problem. The door opened with a heavy creak. Richardson walked in, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, as if it were just another quiet evening shift. He sat across from her, took a sip, stared her down with a smirk. So, you ready to talk yet? Or still pretending you've got rights? Amara didn't look up. Her pulse thundered, but something inside her had shifted. Fear was no longer the loudest emotion. Anger had taken its place. I want my phone call, she said, voice low but steady. He paused. He knew she had that right, but ignoring it had been too convenient, a way to assert control, to keep her small. Who are you calling? Your roommate? Some college professor? Mommy? She raised her eyes. My father, James Morgan. He blinked. James Morgan? And who the hell is that supposed to be? Deputy Director of the FBI. Silence. Thick, solid, like the air had stopped moving. The smirk vanished. Richardson squinted at her, trying to read if she was bluffing. Get up, he snapped. He led her down the corridor. Every officer they passed stepped aside without a word. No eye contact. No questions. They knew Richardson, but something was different now. He opened a small room with a landline phone, closed the door behind them, stayed inside to listen. Amara picked up the phone and dialed. She didn't even need to think about the number. He answered on the first ring. Amara? Dad, her voice trembled. They arrested me. No reason, no lawyer, nothing. He cut her off immediately. Where are you? Which precinct? She glanced at the door. At Richardson. He stood arms crossed, trying to hold onto his power. 8th Precinct, Harris County. There was a pause. Then her father's voice returned, cold, deliberate, terrifying. Put the officer who arrested you on the phone. She handed it over slowly. Richardson took it, suddenly unsure of himself. Hello? What he heard wasn't a father's voice. It was a command from the upper reaches of power. You just made the biggest mistake of your career. You have 5 minutes to release my daughter, clear her from your system, and prepare a written apology. In 20 minutes, a federal team will be at your precinct. If there's a single record left, you won't just lose your job. You'll be made an example for the entire country. Richardson's face drained of color. He slowly lowered the phone, and for the first time that night, he was afraid. Richardson stood frozen in the small phone room, his lips pale, eyes empty. His ears rang. Every word James Morgan had spoken echoed like a sentence carved into his skull. You'll be made an example, nationwide. He burst out of the room, avoiding Amara's gaze. She remained inside, still trembling, but for the first time, justice felt close, close enough to breathe. Smith, Blake, he barked, charging into the main hall. With me, now. 2 young officers rushed over, alarmed by his tone. Richardson spoke in a frantic whisper, like the walls themselves were listening. Wipe everything, now. Records, gone. Cameras, off. Archives, clean top to bottom. The arrest never happened. Got it? What about the report? Smith asked, voice shaking. Forget the damn report. She walked out of here on her own. Understand me? He fumbled with his shirt collar, sweat beading on his forehead. For the first time in years, his hands were shaking. He lunged for his computer and began deleting files with desperate keystrokes. First, the arrest entry. Then, interrogation logs. Then he opened the internal surveillance system. Error. Access denied. What the hell, he muttered and clicked again. The system returned a message. Deletion blocked. External audit in progress. His eyes widened. He jumped to his feet. It was too late. We're screwed, Blake whispered. Shut up. Richardson snapped. It's not over. We'll say she provoked us. She was hostile. There are witnesses. Our guys will back the story. But no one answered. Silence. Thick, heavy, and the only thing they could hear now was the ticking of the wall clock. A new notification blinked on the screen. Federal audit. ETA, 11 minutes. Only 11 minutes left. A dead silence hung over the police station. No laughter, no chatter. Even the phones had stopped ringing. Everyone was waiting. The tension inside was like a stretched wire. Moments from snapping. Some tried to pretend they were working, but their fingers trembled on the keyboards. Time dragged painfully slow. The ticking of the wall clock grew louder. 10:59. Outside, movement. Cars. Black SUVs. Unmarked. With tinted windows. 1, 2, 3, 4. They lined up in perfect formation in front of the station. Engines cut off all at once. Doors opened. The agent stepped out. Not regular officers. Black suits. Earpieces. Dark glasses despite the night. Faces like stone. No emotion. Shoulders squared. Their stride precise. Practiced. Military. And in the center, him. James Morgan. Tall. Receding hairline. But hard. Chiseled features. A deep voice that didn't need to shout to command. He walked steadily toward the entrance. No one stopped him. Doors opened before him, as if afraid to stand in his way. Inside, not a soul moved. "Where's my daughter?" His voice rang out like a gunshot. Richardson stepped forward. His face was deathly pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but Morgan cut him off. "You didn't just break protocol. You assaulted a citizen. My daughter. No warrant. No cause. No attorney." He stepped closer, until they were face to face. "Now, you will answer for that." It was a mistake," Richardson stammered. We thought she." "You thought?" Morgan took another step. "You, a police sergeant, thought you could think in place of the law? That you could grab, humiliate, and lock up a citizen just because of her skin color?" Silence. The entire station listened. Morgan turned to his agents. "Take him." 2 agents stepped forward and seized Richardson. He didn't resist. He only lowered his head. For the first time in his entire career, he knew what it meant to be on the wrong side of the law. The other officers stepped back. Some looked away. Some felt it. Something bigger than scandal was coming. This was the beginning of the end. As Richardson was taken away in a black van, the police station began to wake from its shock. But with that awakening came something else, memory. Morgan and his team didn't just come to arrest the sergeant. They came to investigate, and what they found was worse than anyone expected. In the archives, they uncovered dozens of illegal arrests, all with the same pattern: young black men stopped without cause, girls held in cells under vague suspicions that were never confirmed. No lawyers, no phone calls, just silence and filthy entries in old logbooks. Some files were crossed out, others completely erased, but the truth still began to rise to the surface. In a basement corner, they found a room with no cameras, no windows, no listed purpose. Inside, a metal chair, a desk stained with blood, and torn interrogation forms. Morgan stood in that room, hands on the table. He didn't speak, he just stared, but his eyes were burning. "How many were there?" asked one of the agents. "More than we can count," Morgan replied quietly. "More than anyone wants to remember." Across the city, stories began to surface from people who could no longer speak for themselves. One was found dead after detention. The report said suicide. Another spent 3 days in a cell without food. A 16-year-old girl walked out covered in bruises and stayed silent for a month. Amara was shaken. She had thought her case was a rare injustice, but now she knew she was just one of many. Outside the station, a crowd began to gather. Family members, neighbors, former detainees. Some held faded photos. Some wept. Some prayed. But every single one of them was waiting. They were waiting for truth. The next morning, the city woke up changed. Sunlight broke through gray clouds, but the streets were no longer the same. On every corner, people gathered, holding signs, faded photographs, and silent grief in their eyes. These weren't just protesters. They were mothers who had lost sons, brothers waiting for justice, students, elders, people who had been silent too long. In front of the police station, a crowd had formed. At first, a few dozen, then hundreds. By noon, thousands. They chanted names, not just Amara's. No, they called out those who didn't survive, the ones whose files had disappeared. The names kept growing. "Say his name," the crowd shouted. "Nicholas Brown," they responded. "Say her name." "Layla Thomas." and on the station steps stood Amara, wearing a simple dark jacket, her lips still split, bruises under her eyes. But she wasn't hiding. She stood tall, looked into the crowd, into the faces of pain. I was silent. She spoke into a megaphone, because I was afraid, because I thought it was just a mistake, just one bad moment. The crowd held its breath. But it wasn't a mistake. It's a system. That uniform, that baton, that cold stare. They didn't see a person. They saw a threat. I survived, but many didn't. She held up a photo of a young boy, around 10 years old. In the corner, the date of death, 2018. He was my cousin. They arrested him for riding his bike in the wrong neighborhood. An hour later, he was dead. Someone began to sob. We're not here for revenge, she continued. We're here for truth, for those they tried to erase, to make sure this never happens again. The crowd erupted in applause, cries, tears. Someone passed out water. Someone knelt. Someone simply hugged the person beside them. This wasn't just a protest. It was a cleansing, a confession of an entire city. And at that moment, the news camera showed the station's rooftop. A man in a police uniform stood there, watching, in his eyes, a flicker of fear. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. While the streets pulsed with chants and marching footsteps, another battle was raging, high above the noise, in a polished, silent office. The state police chief's office was refined but intimidating. Marble floor, leather chairs, the U.S. flag standing solemnly behind the desk. Behind it sat General Daniels, an aging man with great temples and a face shaped by decades of command. But today, his face held neither rage nor resolve. It held fear. We have a problem, he muttered, eyes fixed on the screen showing the protests live. This is spiraling. Across from him sat the state attorney, gaunt, pale, with a voice like winter. We warned you. It started with one cop. Now they want the whole truth, and the truth could drown us all. In the corner stood a third man. No uniform, no name, just a cigarette and cold eyes. He watched Daniels the way a surgeon studies a dying patient. If a full investigation begins, the attorney said quietly, it'll drag up decades of misconduct, wrongful convictions, lost evidence. This goes all the way to the top. I won't lose everything over this, Daniels growled. I won't let a few street punks destroy what we built. Then act. We've got 24 hours, maybe less. Hours later, a public statement appeared on the news. Dry, bureaucratic. Leadership condemns isolated incidents, promises to investigate, to ensure order, and to prevent radicalization. But the people didn't hear that. They heard a lie. Meanwhile, 2 officers stood in the precinct hallway, whispering, word is, they're planning to shut it down, erase the files, all of it. I know, but this time it won't work. The people aren't backing down. Then someone's got to choose a side. Inside the system, panic spread like wildfire. The old guard tightened. Some burned papers. Some left town. Some lawyered up. A system built on fear and silence was beginning to realize it was time to pay. The first cracks in the monolith came at night. Quiet. No gunshots. No headlines. Just whispers. Files slipping out of drawers. Anonymous envelopes gliding across desks. Officer Jason Hill, 10 years on the force. No medals, no scandals, just routine, was awakened by a knock on his window. His old partner, Thomas, stood there. I need to talk, he whispered, looking around. Just us. They sat in a car behind an old gas station. Thomas was shaking, in his lap, documents. This is everything, he said. I've been copying reports for years. I've seen them fake evidence. Ignore torture. Remember the guy who died in holding? Thought he took his own life. He was beaten. By Captain Michelson, ordered to wipe it clean. Then we got a bonus. Outstanding service. Jason stared at the files. Dozens of cases. Names. Faces. Signatures. Why are you showing me this? Because you're the only one I trust. I can't carry this anymore. That same night, on the other side of town, Attorney Jennifer Slate received a package. No return address. Inside, a flash drive. And a note, if you're still fighting for truth, watch this. The drive held surveillance footage, interrogations without counsel, abuse, screaming kids, mutilated bodies. Tears filled her eyes. My God, she whispered. The next morning, the city buzzed with rumors like wildfire through dry brush. Some officers resigned quietly, leaving only a badge. Others tried to blackmail their way out, and one sergeant, during a full precinct meeting, stood up and declared, I'm done being part of this. Either you tell the truth, or I will. The system shook, and for the first time in years, it feared its own. At 6 a.m., federal agents stormed the police headquarters. No warning, no knocking, in bulletproof vests, armed with warrants. Shock turned to chaos on the officers' faces. For once, the raid wasn't in someone's home, it was in their own station. Hands up, the FBI agent shouted. This is a federal investigation. Don't move. Within an hour, dozens of computers were confiscated, thousands of documents seized, internal video logs pulled. 3 senior officers were arrested on the spot, among them, Captain Michelson, his face, usually cold and calm, twisted with rage and panic. You'll regret this, he growled. Not us, replied a female agent. You. Meanwhile, in City Hall's press room, journalists filled every corner. Attorney Jennifer Slate stood at the microphone. Behind her, a large screen began playing video after video, beatings, illegal arrests, torture, police confessions. The room froze. This is the truth, she said. We won't be silent anymore. The news exploded across the country. National channels cut into live coverage. The name Eliza James, the girl whose fate sparked it all, became a symbol of resistance and justice. Her father, the FBI agent, finally appeared publicly, wearing a suit, his posture straight, eyes sharp. You went after my daughter thinking her skin color made her weak. You were wrong. She's stronger than you'll ever be. And now, you'll pay. 2 months later, 12 officers were convicted. 3 received life sentences. A new unit for police accountability was formed by the state prosecutor. Reforms began, but scars remained. So did memory. Eliza walked into the street and looked up at the sky. Still the same, steel blue, heavy, but now, she felt no fear, only purpose. Truth is like fire. If you light it in time, it can burn down even the most rotten system.